All right, so we're going to begin now. Okay, so welcome to a new segment that is the Sensorial Adventure in Montessori, the second practical exercises that we are going to be starting today. Hi, everyone. My name is Divya, and I'm your course coordinator. A very, very warm and enthusiastic welcome to each one of you to this extraordinary Zoom session. We're absolutely thrilled to have each one of you join us today on time for an exclusive sensorial experience Montessori lesson plan. Okay, throughout these lessons for today and tomorrow, how it has been planned is we're going to see how we take you through all the senses, allowing us to explore and discover the wonders of the world in a very unique way, just in the way that what Dr. Montessori envisioned for herself, wherein she believed that the learning was most effective when we work with curiosity and when the same lessons are captivated through our senses, right? So today and tomorrow, during this entire time of say 2 hours or 2.5 hours of a lesson plan that we actually have, we're only going to be working with some of the sensorial materials and a few activities which are designed to heighten your perceptions, which might help the child to work on strengthening their cognitive skills, which helps them to work on enhancing their ability. Now, at the same time, it also gives you an ability to observe the child much better. It is also going to help the child to discriminate and to work with the stimuli that is around him or her. Okay, so this would be a basic agenda. Now, whether it could be exploring the textures, whether it could be identifying the scents, whether it could be on working with different kinds of colors, or even why not about the feelings when they touch a particular object or the weight of an object or a dimension of an object. Every exercise, what we are talking over here, will be accurately or very precisely, it is curated to awaken the senses of the child. Okay, so that's the beauty of these Montessori manipulatives in our sensorial area. So what we're going to be working over here is like, um, we'll go through the lesson plan of how we introduce these lessons. We'll see the glimpse of how these lessons can be presented to the children. In case if we don't have those lessons or we don't have those materials, is there a possibility for us to do a supported activity? Just so that you would be able to support and engage the child through whatever inspiration that you have got through today's and tomorrow's sessions. Okay, so get ready. So we're going to do a lot of notes also today, and let's quickly dive into the discovery of this amazing sensory education. Okay, so once again, a very warm welcome to all you exceptional students over there, and let's make this experience a memorable one for all of us. The first exercise, before I begin, let's get into the definitions of what sensorial work is all about. So I'm going to be pinning my writing board as well. Simultaneously, you could see what I would try to write. And today is 28th, and this is our second practical that we have actually started. Okay. So what do you mean by sensorial work? The first question, it's a very straightforward question. So what's a sensorial work?
It's related to the senses.
Related to
Very
senses.
much. Very much related to our senses. We all agree on that. Sensorial is nothing but anything that is related to our senses. Now, what is sense?
Eyes, ears,
What we are going to know, what we are going to do is
touch and feel.
know the
Yeah, what
cherish
you
moment.
are going to experience, I could put it in that way. I can
Yes.
put it in that way. Our experience, what I would experience could be my senses. I would experience visually something. I see something, so that becomes my visual sense. I smell something, so that becomes my olfactory sense. I taste something, so that becomes my gustatory sense, right? So this is something that we're going to be capturing on. So what should be my purpose and my aim of this entire sensorial work is, I have to make sure when I introduce any lesson to a child, the child would acquire clear knowledge about it. The child will get the conscious information, and the child will be able to make classifications in the environment. Now, this should be my purpose. Now, right from the child's birth, we all believe that the child is experiencing sensorial lessons, right? The moment the mother is holding the baby in her arms, the child is experiencing the warmth of touch. When we are singing lullabies, the child is listening to the lullabies. When we are talking, the child is actually looking at us. Maybe they respond also as and when they actually grow. They smile at us back. When you're making your face a little in a frowny way, the child might also frown, right? So all these things are nothing but a reciprocation of what exactly that you're giving it to the child. You give a good thing, the child will also give you something good itself. So all of these studies are nothing but the sensory education to the child. So through our senses, the child is learning about what is there in the environment. We all agree on that, right? The child starts to begin to understand what I have it in my environment. So that's how we are also introducing the child to be a sensorial explorer. Okay, the child is anyways an explorer, but in this entire chapter, what we're going to be working is only like how a child can be a sensorial explorer. So, what are the kind of exercises that I can give to my child so that my child is becoming a sensorial explorer becomes our agenda for these 2 days. Okay, so first thing, what I have to be working over here is like who designed these sensorial exercises? Obviously, Dr. Maria Montessori. Now, why did she do that? Because she wanted to cover every quality that was perceived by our senses. Now, what were they? What was those qualities? See, we are perceiving some quality. How? Through sense. For example, if I give the quality as size, if I give you two objects, can you tell me what is big and what is small? You all should be able to give me what is big. I think my camera alignment is not proper, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Now is it better? Better?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Point it down. Okay. So what we're going to be working over here, Dr. Maria Montessori also gave for each one of us is to work on the quality. Now, when I start with quality, I have to perceive every quality through such things. So what it could be? My qualities could be what all? One thing is my size.
Size,
Second
shape,
could be the shape. Yes, we also talk about the shapes. That's important.
thickness,
Quantity.
Quantity, no, we're talking about quality.
The color.
Okay.
Weight.
Color, yes.
color,
Color. We can also talk about the composition. If I'm talking about the color, I can talk about the composition. I can talk about the textures. What do you think?
Yes.
Can we talk about the textures?
Yes.
That is also one thing. What about
Sounds.
sounds?
Sound.
Yes.
Fragrance.
We talk about the sounds.
Yes, ma'am.
Think.
Fragrance.
Smell, fragrance.
Smell, fragrances. We talk about the smells. We talk about weights. We talk about temperatures. All of these could be somewhere related to my quality. So I am going to be helping my child to work with certain exercises which
Ma'am.
might help me to work on these. Yes.
Taste.
Taste also, definitely, yes. We are also going to be working on taste also. So these ones are going to be helping me to actually work on my quality. Okay. Now, again, further, I would be ranging, these are all my exercises, right? So it's a wide range. Now, do you think it's a wide range? Such a vast range. It's difficult for me also to group them. So, what to make it easier, I'm going to do is like, we're going to be grouping them into 8 groups. Okay, so what are those 8 groups? How do we group them into 8 groups? The first one, please note down. The first one is visual. Okay, exercises that through which we are seeing, we are differentiating objects. What are similar objects? What are different objects? What is the color of it? All of that would come under my visual sense exercises. Second thing, when I give children to see, don't you think that naturally they're so curious to touch, hold, right? So what is the next thing that immediately comes down to? What is my second sense?
Touch.
Touch. Sense of touch, that becomes good enough because we're working with the sense of touch. So we give children to learn. So children learn through sense of touch. It could be like, the surface of that particular object, and children are limited to use the tips of their fingers. Again, we have to be very particular, like, which hand to use, which hand not to use. Again, it is also depending on the child's feeling when they're actually touching that particular object. All these things would be my points of observation for me to actually work on. Each time that I'm holding an object, now say this is my object, I saw it, it's a duster. I felt like touching it. I felt it was very light. What is the next thing that I would opt when I hold it in my hand? What is the next thing that immediately comes to my mind? Don't you think it's all about the weights?
Right.
Whether it is heavy, whether it is light?
Yes.
Correct? So, anytime we are working with weight, it is called as baric sense. B-A-R-I-C. Baric sense. Now, what if this was too hot or too cold or it had a mild temperature? I am also experiencing a sense of temperature. We all agree on that? So that depends on my thermic sense. Anything which is related to my temperatures. Anything which is related to my temperatures. My thermic sense. Okay, we hear a lot most of the time. If I'm actually dropping this down, it can make some noise. If I'm keeping it very softly, it can make a different sound. So it is also, every object also has sound. We agree on that. So
Yes.
somewhere I'm also working with auditory sense, wherein
Yes.
I am hearing some sounds. Correct? So auditory sense. So here, what the child is able to do here, in auditory sense, the child is able to differentiate between sounds. What kind of sounds that we actually make? Is it a soft sound? Is it a hard sound? Is it a pleasant sound? Is it too noisy? Right? So we kind of help the child to discriminate between these kinds of sounds. For to make it much better, to make it as a refinement of these exercises, you give different exercises. Correct? We agree on that? Sorry, guys. Yeah. So we're going to be working again on the auditory aspects over here. So we would be able to see on the auditory sense. We learned about that. To make it as a very good refinement, because the child is much more sensitive to sounds and other things in the environment, we give different kinds of exercises. So we're going to see that also. Okay. So the next one, what do you think it is the next one? We might be able to smell certain things.
Yes.
So anything which is related to my smell, I call it as olfactory sense. Okay, olfactory is related to the sense of smelling. Correct? So we work on those. And smell and taste. Sometimes, you can also integrate those exercises. Anytime that you give the child to work on tasting, that becomes my gustatory sense. It's a sense of taste.
Taste.
Okay. Now towards the end, if you want the child to learn to feel only the object, if you want to make sure that the child makes only recognition on what he feels, that is called as stereognostic sense. To make it very simple, to explain about the stereognostic sense, we always take this particular example. Like say, for example, if you're cooking biryani, how many of you cook good biryani? Maybe it's like veg pulao or chicken biryani or anything. So in case if you're cooking and if you have invited the guests to come to your home, if you have really cooked well, as soon as they enter, what's the first thing that they would notice?
Smell.
Smell, right? So that itself will be so tempting. And when you start serving that into the bowl, what is the next thing that tempts them?
Eyes.
Eyes, texture,
The color of it. They have not
color,
touched
texture,
color
texture.
of it. So the first thing was related to my smell. The second thing was related to my visual sense. So what could be my intake over here is like, yes, Divya has already cooked really a good biryani without even tasting it. 90% of you felt like I'm going to taste this. Correct? We all do that. And when you go for any buffet, you choose based on the color? How many of you will see the color of the dish and taste a meal? Many of us, we do that. Like 70 to 80% of people, we actually go by that. That means, don't you think that we integrate our senses? We were supposed to only taste it and then give the results. But the sense of smell and sense of sight interfered. and it disrupted me to taste and then give me the results. When you don't want that thing to happen, and if you blindfold, or if you close your nose and only then you are allowed to eat and only then you are able to give me the judgment, that becomes my stereognostic sense. So that becomes our stereognostic sense, wherein we would not involve multiple senses, wherein the child is going to learn to feel that object, okay, in recognition to what it feels at that particular time. So that means there is no impression of my other senses. Correct? So I can say it is attributed to a special or a sixth sense. So we can also call this as muscular sense. We'll see some of the exercises which makes it much better. So clear, all of you? Yes.
But that the second one, touch and the stereognostic is same.
Touch is, see, when we are giving a sense of touch, what happens there is like it is necessarily not required for you to blindfold. The child can see and they can touch and feel. It's about feeling. In tactile muscular sense, you will blindfold. Some of the tactile exercises also you give them a blindfold, because if you don't want the child to see and then judge. Say for example, if I give pebbles and if I give cotton, if I ask them which one is rough, they will definitely, by seeing itself, they will say pebbles. But if you don't want the children to say that at the first go, you will blindfold. Only then they will go touch, they'll experience the surface, and then they will tell. But in tactile muscular sense, you will definitely give them a blindfold, because you want the child to only feel it and only feel and then tell. So they will be able to remember things which is of that shape. When we use the mystery bag, we will be able to understand the sense a little better. Okay? Okay. So what do we do next? So now everybody is clear with all the 8 senses what we have. We start with visual. I would also add the 9th one. 9th one is here only in visual. When I'm seeing, let me adjust my camera. When we are seeing, we are able to see so many colors. Correct? So we are able to see so many colors. So that's the reason we can also have something called as chromic sense, which is related to my colors. So I can say overall 9 senses or 8 groups. Okay. So now let's go deeper into each one of them. Okay. Now what did Dr. Maria Montessori did here was something which is very, very inspirational. Now, before we get started with this, I have to also talk about the people who actually influenced her and gave the information. So let me quickly give that introductory part of lesson to all of you. Yes, here we go. So many presentations, just hold on. So I'm picking this from a theory lesson, okay? So for all the students who have taken up diploma program, you have a theory chapter which talks about learning through senses, or how well you will be able to introduce these lessons. The first part over here talks about what you actually pick up from Dr. Maria Montessori's philosophy. Okay. So Dr. Montessori always believed that our intellect and the knowledge of the world is very important. And that starts right from our birth, because we start absorbing knowledge which is around us. We see many things, we hear many things, we touch, we smell, we taste, whatever is around us, right? So we start collecting necessary information which is helping me for my brain development. We all agree on that? Through that itself, we will be able to work on our creativity. So she is Dr. Maria Montessori. Now coming to people who influence Dr. Maria Montessori. In the first class itself, I spoke about 2 people who influenced Dr. Maria Montessori, right? 2 Frenchmen. So we saw how Dr. Maria Montessori was a part of surgical assistant. She was a surgical assistant and she worked with these mentally challenged children, right? So, who were those Frenchmen who were actually working with children who were not capable, who were mentally challenged? So, it is Jean Ettard and Edward Seguin. She worked with them, correct? Because she worked with children who were very deficient mentally. So, what she worked over there and what she learned over there was like, we have to teach children through their senses. Only then the child will be able to learn. She also got a lot of influences from Rosia and Pestalozzi also. So all these developmental works helped Dr. Maria Montessori to plan her lessons very well. Now these were the inspirational people for her. Now coming down to the next part, what did she do is like, she started her career because the government also encouraged Dr. Maria Montessori to set up her school. She started her school CASA, right? So what did she do over there is like she invited children who were deprived of sensory stimulation. That means the children never had toys. The children never had any kind of activities which was oriented wherein they could taste good food, they could smell good things. They never had any such opportunity. And they were so deprived of all the sensory stimulation. So she invited all those children. And when she brought all those children over there, she observed that every child was given the key to classify things which was around them. That means the child was able to segregate, the child was able to make their own choices in the environment. Now once she started seeing all of these, she started making a lot of notes. She understood how these children were getting introduced step by step. They were becoming much organized, they were able to classify things, they were able to learn from the fellow members, they were able to experience things around their environment. So slowly all these little things started adding to children's intelligence. That led them to get adapted to the environment, because every child, if you see here the working environment, the child was so busy doing something or the other. She also led the children to work with natural materials, that is, the materials which was available at home. Now, this one, the child would definitely love to do it because they are doing it with their fellow friends. They will naturally be attracted to all of that, and it is still helping the child to work with their senses. They are working with so much of enthusiasm. Now, what happened here? We spoke about the quality at the beginning of the class, right? Now Dr. Maria Montessori started to observe. She was like, okay, the child is now able to isolate things. They're able to work in classification. So she also realizes from now on, when I'm making lesson plans, I have to isolate certain qualities of the material. Like the materials which is related to colors will be separately grouped. The materials to introduce sizes, shapes, etc. will all be given separately. And slowly, she also said that I will start helping the child to grade also. So, to bring all these concepts, what she did was like she started developing a custom made materials for children. For all the visual sense activities, we work with materials like Pink Tower. We work with materials like brown stairs, red rods, knobbed cylinders. If you're working in a Montessori school, you will be knowing about all these names. But if you're working in a kindergarten or a NTT school, so it might be a little difficult for you. But not to worry, we will go in detail about each of those materials also. Okay, so we will see these materials. Like for forms, we use cabinet trays, leaf cabinet. For colors, we use color box 1, 2, 3. For shapes and sizes, we use pink towers. For thickness, we use brown stairs. For lengths, we use red rods. For thickness and length, again, we use knobbed and knobless cylinders, right? So likewise, in every area, be it tactile sense, we use these materials. For stereognostic, we use mystery bag. For auditory sense, we use bells, we use sound boxes. For gustatory sense, we use tasting bottles to introduce the sense of salt, sweet, bitter, sour, and spicy for children. For olfactory sense, we use smelling jars, right? So we also have this mixed impression areas. Now, this is where more than one quality is combined to work with that. Like say, if I'm working with color also, I'm working with shapes also. So that becomes little challenging for a child. In such cases, we are gradually moving from a easy skill to a grading skill, correct? So that is when we would be giving them these materials. It could be binomial cubes, trinomial cubes, constructive triangles, Then I can also give geometric figures. I can give geometric solids, decanomial squares, Noblest cylinders, all of that. They are mixed impression area exercises which will have combination of different qualities for children. See, I'm just giving you a glimpse. I'm taking you through each material in the sensorial lesson. Towards the end, in the cultural extension, we would also see materials which is related to my botany, zoology, geography. For that, we use materials like leaf cabinet. We can also have puzzle maps, sandpaper globes, colored globes, land and water forms, flags, cultural folders, art folders, and many more. So what's very important for us, as Dr. Montessori says, is like learning should be a natural process. Okay, so it develops spontaneously and children do the best, but only thing is like we got to trust them and let them learn in their own way, in their own time. So this is one thing that we need to be working with. So that becomes your first introductory part of it. Let's get to our first exercise in our visual sense. Please note down. In our visual sense. So what is visual sense? We all know about it. We're working with our senses, right? So we are able to see with our eyes. The first thing I would like to take is about, let's take about length. Shall we take about length? Okay. So I have, say for example, if I have a marker and if I have a pen, what is longer? Both are almost of an equal
Yes, ma'am.
length, correct? Now what if I have a cap and a marker, which is long? The pen is long and the cap is short, right? So the first skill I'm going to be teaching children is to discriminate between the length. When I talk about length, I will talk about the length in terms like this is long and this is short. When I talk about length, I talk about this is long and this is short. So this is the first skill that I will have to be introducing my child with. So what is the material that I would use? I would use a material called red rods. Now red rods is the first visual sense material or a manipulative which we use in our classes. Okay. So first skill is about the length. We are talking about long and short. I'm going to be introducing you to what material? It is called as my red rods. Okay. So how do we do the presentation? As I mentioned, presentations are really important. Now, before you present something, you need to have a lesson plan of how you would present it. Correct? So this is how it looks like. The overview, if you see here, the red rods can be used for children to work on what? On your visual sense. So that's the first important objective. Why? You want to give the children to work on the visual sense and you want to also talk about the length here. So that's the purpose. The child should be able to differentiate this is long, this is short. So what are the materials? So how many rods I should have? Now you should be able to count it. How many rods are there?
10.
10 rods. Now, do each rod have a measurement?
Yes.
Yes. So
ma'am.
what is the shortest one?
First.
The first one. So 10 centimeter. The shortest one, the one which is here, that will be 10 centimeter. And the longest one will be 100 centimeter.
100.
So measurements are important. If you forget about the measurement, you can take the red rod, you can measure it using the ruler and you can write. Now, when you present all of these, should we also have a mat?
Yes.
Definitely, we need to have a mat. So what will the child do here? The child sits, he places all the materials on the mat. Now you need to start introducing the lesson. So how do I introduce the lesson? There are 3 things that you have to make sure that the child becomes good enough learning about it. First, I pick a short one and I pick a long one. Only these 2 rods I will pick. I will tell the child, this is short, this is long. Then I bring one more rod. When I bring another rod, what happens? Don't you think that I'm comparing?
Yes.
Is it long or is it short? Or is it long than the long or is it short than the short? We start manipulating and adjusting their lengths, isn't it? So what I do here, I'm coming to a second degree wherein I'm trying to compare my lengths. So what about my vocabulary? My vocabulary would also change, right? Ma'am, this is long, this is short, this is longer, this is shorter.
Shorter.
So that becomes my comparative degree or the second degree. Now, if I bring two more rods, what happens? That becomes my third degree. I again compare, I again arrange. What about my language? This is long, this is short, this is longer, this is
Longest,
shorter, this is
shortest.
longest, this
Longest,
is
this is
shortest.
shortest.
Correct? So that has to be introduced. So when introduce grading, so grading means you bring all the degrees. If it is to the point, if your question says introduce to the point the sizes, then you will introduce long and short. If they say introduce to the midpoint means long, longer, short, shorter. Introduce to the extreme, then you have to use long, longer, longest, short, shorter, shortest. Now, these would be your questions that they can actually ask. So, this is your agenda. So, the child should be able to differentiate the comparison between which is the shortest and which is the longest. And eventually, the child will start arranging all these rods naturally. Okay. Now, how do we do that? There could be a different kinds of arrangement. These are all the extra ones. I don't want to get into the extra exercises. You can always give these extra exercises once your child masters, however, to arrange another thing. But the actual way of doing it, I'm going to be showing you now in the presentation. So let's go to the presentation and I'll show you how to work on arranging your material. Okay. So you start with red rods. What is the material? Red rod is a visual sense material, correct? So
Yes.
we call that as a visual sense material. So I need to keep my mat. Mat has to be ready, correct? So we need to keep our mat. We again reinforce what? Unrolling a mat, settling
Rolling
the
on.
mat, carrying the mat, keeping it down. So that becomes your activity. Next, what do? We take rods one by one, the shortest one. So now the first presentation, what happens? The child does not know. So they can keep randomly on your working mat. They keep up all these rods randomly on your working mat and see this one. This is the longest rod that we actually have. When you're holding each of the rods, you need to experience the length. Okay, see how long it is. Okay, you need to show the child by holding. Children, see how long it is. See how short it is. How long. Okay, the child should be able to experience this particular thing. So this is your first experience. You can start giving this to a playgroup child also. Now, what you need to be working over here is like the short one. How do I place it? The short one is always towards the child and the longest is away from the child. So short is always towards you, correct? So when you're setting short, then the little longer, little longer, little longer, and then you would extend.
Longest.
You would be able to present. So when you're doing that, do a finger run through. Short. Now do a finger run through on that. Don't you think it is even more long? Now I bring the next one. Now what happens here? I'm introducing an orderly placement. The child is observing carefully how the teacher is arranging all of them one after the other sequentially in order, wherein the length is gradually increasing by 1 unit. Correct? So do you think it's a visual sense? The child is seeing the length, how it is growing. So it is a pre-math skill wherein you are introducing measurements to child. Little older children can bring the ruler to their classes and they can also actually measure their lengths. So this is a simple exercise that you have to carry out in your classes wherein we would be discriminating. The other thing is like the edges towards the end, they should all be towards one point itself. So this is your first material and this is called red rods. So what do we do after that? We have to return back everything onto our shelf. Okay. So that covers our first exercise of red rods. Clear? Okay. Now you tell me what are the materials required for red rods? You need a mat.
Working mat.
Yes.
Tray.
Very good.
Different.
Lovely. Okay,
Math,
now you
God,
tell me what is the purpose of doing this exercise?
And the children
Sensorial.
will
They
know
know
the
about the
difference.
Able
length,
to differentiate long and short.
differentiate the
Yes.
Differentiate
Purpose
between
to
long and short.
differentiate between long and
Long and short.
short. Okay. Now, for all the diploma holders, you need to also add extra exercises to it. I'm just giving you because we have some of them who have taken the diploma program here. So, what we need to add on over here is like whenever you're introducing your exercises, okay? So, whenever you're introducing your exercises, you need to include exercises which talks about matching from a distance. These are extra. Okay, so when we talk about matching from a distance, okay, so you should ask children to stand from little far away, and then we need to see how far, measure the
Far
length
and near.
of that. Okay, so you will also be able to measure, then match to the environment. Okay, so something which is similarly far from that same length, I should be able to match. So those would be your extra exercises that you can actually give. Now, what is the language that you're going to be introducing? Red dots,
English.
long, short. So this is your language. Okay, and what are the degrees that you're going to introduce? This is your positive degree. What is your comparative?
Longer.
What is your comparative? This is short.
Short.
This is long.
Short.
Then this is shorter. This is longer. This is shortest. This is longest.
Longest.
Sorry. So this would be your comparative.
comparative.
Okay. Now in your superlative,
Superlative, it will add shortest and longest.
yes. So you will always start. This is short. This is long. This
Long.
is shorter. This is
shortest.
longer. This is shortest. This is
This is longest.
longest in superlative degree. So these are the 3 degrees that you're going to be working with. Purpose, definitely yes. I am able to visually discriminate the differences of all the lengths, and I'm also able to get the muscular memory of the length. The child is now able to remember whether it is long or whether it is short. So don't you think that we are preparing the child for math?
Yes.
Yes, yes. So what could be my age? Maybe 3 to 4 years?
Yes.
I would introduce these exercises for 3 to 4
Two.
years. So this is our first exercise. So let's get into the next one, which is related to our sizes. Okay, so related to our size. So we use a material called pink tower. We use a material called pink tower. Your pink tower will be made up with 10 wooden cubes. Now, what is the color of these cubes?
Pink color.
The cubes are in pink color. So maybe that could be the reason they are called pink. Now, what about the size? They range from 1 centimeter cube to 10
10
centimeter cube.
centimeter.
Okay. So, what are the other materials that I need? I need a mat, correct? And I should also need a stand to construct my tower. So they are cubes, so we're going to be constructing the tower also on that. Okay, so that's something that we're going to be looking over here. Now in presentation, when I'm working here, I have to do 2 things. The first presentation for all you students, you're going to build the tower. Okay, your first presentation is you will build the tower. Second presentation is you will dismantle the tower. These are the 2 exercises you have to be doing. You will build and you would dismantle. Now again, what are your other exercises? You will grade to the point. What is your grading? How do you grade? You will grade to the point. To the point means, since we are talking about size, it is big and small, positive degree. If I say grade to the midpoint, second degree, what is that? Comparative.
And
Bigger, small, smaller. Okay. Grade to extreme, superlative degree, third degree. Big, small, bigger, smaller, biggest, smallest. So this is how you would also work on grading. Okay, so that should also be included in your language. Now, why do we do this exercise? We will see it. You will be able to tell me all by yourself after we see the presentation. Okay, so let's quickly get back to our presentation. So I'm going to be sharing you that. A small lesson plan which talks about our
Pinta.
Pink tower. Hope I have that. Hope I have that lesson. Yes, I do have. Okay, so this is our second lesson. So we're going to be working on our pink tower. Okay, so now can you see the tower is stacked up? This is how it needs to be kept also. As I said, we keep refining Dr. Maria Montessori's amazing words. We all observe everything around the world through our senses. So that's the reason we do the sensory lessons very happily. Okay, coming down to the overview of that, I said that it is wooden cubes which is painted in pink in color, and they range from 1 centimeter cube to 10 centimeter cube. You can also say 1 cubic centimeter to 10 cubic centimeter also. And this is how the child is going to do. So what's the purpose? Towards the end of the course, sorry, end of this exercise, what you have to do here is like the child should be able to stack up the cubes. It might find very simple, but when you give it to a 2.5 year, 3 year old, they find it difficult because the child is not able to work or understand on the visual discrimination. So they find it difficult. And at the same time, to stack it carefully also, they find it very difficult. They have that difficulty in hand-eye coordination. So I had one of the video which Shafali shared on that day. When children were stacking up this, don't you see that, the child was not able to construct it? As in when the tower was growing, taller and taller, they had that difficulty because the child was not able to coordinate with their hand and eye properly. The precision was not done. Even here, if you see, the child has built the tower, but what about the precision? Is it correct? It is not aligned properly, right? So those would be your direct aim. You should make sure that the child is able to visually discriminate the sizes. They're able to build the tower in a rightful way. And at the same time, they should be able to understand what is the purpose of doing this. Okay, now coming down to holding the cube. We don't hold the cube this way. We hold the cube this way. So that, anytime the cube falls down also, they're a little heavier, right? So for the child, it's difficult. You're going to be holding it like this as and when the cube gets a little heavier. Okay, so let's see the presentation. So I'm not going to have this. You will also have cards where you get these ready-made materials. So you can purchase it from KidCan or Credo. You get this pink tower cards and materials also. So these would be my languages. We either start from grading from extreme or midpoint, and we will see now the presentation of how to work with that. Okay, so let's go back to our presentation of pink tower. We start with the pink tower lesson. And what is the purpose? How do we do it? Let me quickly share it with you. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is your pink tower. So we begin with carrying a mat. This is the smallest cube that we actually have, which is 1 centimeter cube. Always show it to children and start on the other side. So you have other ones. Let the child pick one only. Did you notice? You have to bring one cube at a time, not everything at a time. Now you should be able to visually see they're all of different sizes, and through your sense of sight, you should be able to figure out this was a large cube. What is the next one? So this is large. So I stack it up. What is the next one? You stack that up, right? So each time that you do this, the child is now able to do it. So this was the first exercise that we had, which talked about you constructing a tower. So we build the tower over here. The second step over here is like, you would dismantle the tower. So dismantling the tower is removing one after the other, and then you would dismantle, keep it in the position. So this is your second material, which talked about the sizes, big and small. Coming down to the third one, when we talk about thickness, we talk something about called as brown stairs. Now, let me quickly give you the insight about what brown stairs is and how the brown stairs material needs to be introduced to children. So, 1 second. Yes. So, brown stairs, how many stairs it will have? It will have 10 brown prisms. Now, each size, say the length is going to remain the same, but the thicknesses would start varying. The length is going to be 20 centimeter, but the thickness will start varying from 10 centimeter to 1 centimeter. Okay, so this is something that you need to be remembering. So how I can write is 10 centimeter into 10 centimeter into 20 centimeter. So it start decreasing, okay, to 1 centimeter into 1 centimeter into 20 centimeter. So what is very common for us in brown stairs is only the length of it. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to build a stair. I'm going to dismantle a stair. Now, through brown prism, what am I teaching? What is my skill? Thick and thin. So always remember, you're teaching one skill. Through brown stairs, I will be teaching children about the thickness. What is my pre-mathematical skill? Thick and thin. What is positive? Thick, thin. Comparative? Comparative?
Comparative, superlative,
Superlative.
Yeah,
positive,
what is comparative? Thicker, thick,
Thicker,
thin, thinner.
Thicker.
thinner.
Thicker.
Superlative, thickest,
Thickest.
thicker,
Thinnest.
thick, thin, thinner,
Thinnest.
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 Okay, so you got to go in that particular order because for everything it's going to be the same. So we're going to grade from extreme, we're going to grade from midpoint, we're grading from the point. So all the 3 degrees are covered for all of us to actually work with. Now coming down to the actual presentation, how do you present your brown stairs? Okay, so let's quickly take a look at our brown stairs. So this is one of the beautiful visual sense material that we have it in our Montessori class. It just looks like this. So we have to use a mat for presenting. We have to show children, guys. Okay, so we have to show them how to carry the prism. So you will always begin by picking the thinnest one and then slowly you will add. If the child is not able to carry it, use a tray to carry it from one place to another. Okay. Now you present it. You show to the children how do they position that on this. Now can you see the measurements? It is, what is the measurement of the thinnest? 10 into 10. What is 10? The thickness is also 10 and this part is also 10. What is common? 20 centimeter?
20
That's
centimeter
only the
length.
length. Only the length is common. Now can you see on the other one towards my right hand side? So that is my second one. So it is 2 into 2 into 20. The third one could be 3 into 3 into 20. The fourth one could be 4 centimeter into 4 centimeter into 20. You're able to get it right? When I have the cube, if you see the dia of that, that is again 4 centimeters. So likewise, my first step is to randomly place all my prisms onto my mat. Now I have placed everything. Now can you visually see which is the thickest one? That's the thickest one, right? So you pick that. And in orderly way, you start organizing that in a staircase format. What is the next thickest one? I can visually see, oh, this is the thickest one. So I pick that. I do the same for almost everything. So we are able to now arrange. Now, do you see there is a pattern of a staircase that is getting formed? That's the reason we call this material as brown stairs, which is not only helping my child to visually discriminate the thickness, but it is also giving them the hands-on experiences about the thicknesses and their constructions. So this is a beautiful material that we use in our classes to help the child to work on their sensory skill, visual sense. Okay. So once you have done with this, what do I do? Keeping it back. Now, can you check here? So this is error of control. Can you check here? If I take the thinnest and I keep that, it is the same. So it's varying only by what? 1 centimeter. The thickness is also getting decreased by 1 centimeter. Right? So this has to be the way that you will help the child to actually check. So that means the stair is being constructed rightfully. So that becomes your error of control wherein the child might not have any difficulty in working with. So that's my Brown's test. Now tell me, why do we do this exercise?
To give
To differentiate the thickness and
Definitely to help the child to differentiate the thickness or the dimension also we can actually say.
And hands-on
What can be
experience.
my age? What can be my age?
3 to 5
3
years.
to 4,
3 to
4.
4 years,
2 to
definitely.
4.
Yeah, indirectly what am I preparing? Indirectly what am I preparing?
Hand-eye
The
hand and eye coordination.
Hand-eye coordination, pre-mathematical
Observation.
skill of thick and thin.
Thick and
Yes,
thin.
thick and thin, that is also possible. Yeah, what else? What else apart
Observation.
from that?
Also carrying
Eagerness.
different sizes of weights, ma'am. Since
Correct.
if you
Yes.
worked on hands-on Montessori materials,
Light and weight.
as the brown stairs and the heavy they are, so you're giving the freedom to the child to learn how to carry the object based on the sizes, so diligently how to handle them, place them. That's one of the important, again, a mathematical skill, also a cognitive development. So the child will know how to place it, how the weights of the brown stairs increases.
Yes. So as and when the thickness is also increasing, the weights can also increase or decrease accordingly. So that's a good point. So that's a reason, every time that you are introducing some of the senses, some of the other senses do get integrated when you're holding the object. That's the whole learning of sensory education, wherein you try to indulge into that activity and get the best of whatever we are actually learning. But we classify that to isolate on one skill learning of thicknesses. Okay. Now moving to the next one, we have something called as cylinder blocks. Now cylinder blocks are something really good. You can note down, this is a little trickier for children to understand, that there are 4 cylinder blocks here. And we're going to write down each one of them. Okay. So your block 1, okay, your block 1, it has a diameter. So cylinder block, it will just look like a cylinder. Okay. And we have a small peg here. These
Knob.
are the cylinders. They have this knobbed cylinders we can
Knob.
actually call. Yeah. So the first block, in the first block, the diameter increases. Okay. So diameter increases and the height will remain constant. The height will remain constant. So what is my diameter? From where to where is it increasing? My diameter can increase from a range of 1 centimeter to 5.5 centimeter. Here in my first exercise. Okay. The second one, when I said height is remaining constant, when I'm saying height is remaining constant, what is the constant height? It is 5 centimeter or 5.5 centimeter is my constant height. So this is my block 1. Okay. Now you will be able to compare when I give you. Is it block 1 or block 2? You should be able to give me that difference. In my block 2, when I take the second cylindrical block 2, here my diameter increases. Again, that's from 1 centimeter to 5.5 centimeter. Height also increases, guys. Height also increases. Height will also increase from what? From 1 to 5.5 centimeter. So this is my block 2. Coming down to my block 3. Why I'm giving you measurements? When you write about materials, measurements are important. If you don't write measurements, 20 marks is gone. Okay. So coming down to your block 3, your diameter is increasing. So whenever it increases from 1.5 to 5.5 centimeter. But here, your height starts to decrease. Your height starts to decrease. From where to where? From your 5.5 centimeter to 1.1 centimeter. It decreases down. Now in my block 4, okay, my diameter remains constant, but my height, guys, keep your self muted. But my height would increase from 1 centimeter to 5 centimeter. Okay, so these are the 4 important blocks that we actually see. Now I'm going to show you the first block. You're going to tell me whether it's block 1, block 2, block 3 or block 4. Okay, ready? Shall we do that? Yeah. Okay. So let's quickly get into the presentation over here. So we have our blocks. It's called knobbed cylinders. Okay. Okay. So let me give you that. Okay. Ready? Yeah. So this is my block. Now when you take each of the cylinders outside and keep it, what is that you're noticing?
Randomly placed, ma'am.
Randomly it's placed, but look at the cylinders. Something changed.
Diameter change.
Diameter changed, correct? But something remained constant. What was that?
Height is there.
Height.
Height
Block
remained
one.
constant. Height remained constant. So it
Block
is my
one.
block one.
One.
So my cylinder, this one, should be the first one that I introduce to children, wherein my diameter would keep increasing from 1 centimeter to 5 centimeters or 5.5, wherein my height would remain constant and the height will be 5.5. So this is my
5.5.
first cylindrical block I introduced. So that's called knobbed cylinders for
Knob
me.
cylinder.
Now, what is my intention of doing this exercises? I want the child to work on the hand-eye coordination. And at the same time, I want the child to learn about the diameters also. So how do I give that as a sensory lesson to a child? Every hole, what I have in my cylinder, I have to see that's a larger hole. Maybe this is also there. Now, do you see that there is a sensory exercise? The larger the hole, the larger the diameter. So you have to always put one finger or two finger around it. Figure that out. Maybe sometimes we can go wrong. Maybe that could be really good enough. When you're putting the right one, if you finger run through on that, you will not feel any gap.
Yeah.
If you would have put a small one, you will have a gap. If you take a larger one, you will not be able to insert it into the hole. That should be your error of control. Sometimes the child picks the right one, but they find it difficult to put it. So all those things will be a little difficult task for the child to actually figure that out. So this is your first block. Okay. Now going to the second one. So what should be your second one? Second block, how should it be?
Knobless.
Same thing, knob cylinder only. But does it vary? Does it vary? Now I should go to my
Yes,
block
ma'am.
2 also, right?
Height may
I didn't get you.
increases.
Height?
Increases.
Height increases. Then
differentiate. Height will be different.
height will be different, huh?
Thickness.
Sure? Okay. Okay. Tell me. I'm waiting.
Height and diameter is increasing.
Okay.
Increasing, diameter increasing, but height is decreasing.
Height is decreasing. Okay. Good job. Okay. Then
Diameter is constant, height is
Okay.
increasing.
Increases one.
Okay. Okay. That's good. So no confusions over there, right? So we have covered almost everything, right? So now coming down to my second position. So let me quickly give you, in case if I bring my second block, there is always my way that I would be ordering. Sorry, not ordering, positioning it. Okay. So how do I position here? The first one, I always positioned like this, right? So there was only one, so I positioned my bar like that. If I bring block 1 and block 2, so I will keep my block 1 here, block 2 here. So this is my arrangement. So I will keep like this. If I bring my third block, I'll keep the block 3 here. So it's easy for a child to manipulate with the knobs. Easy way. Okay. If I bring all my knob 4, so this becomes my knob 1, knob 2, knob 3, knob 4. So I arrange it in a squared fashion and then I start to work with it. So let's see the second position of working with that. So let's quickly go back to our lesson. Yes. So if I have your second position, now can you tell me which block it belongs to? Can you carefully see? What do you think here? Height is also decreasing, diameter is also decreasing. So it comes where?
Height increasing.
So I can say height is increasing, diameter increasing.
Weight.
Not weight, we're not talking weight, we're talking only height. Tripti, are you with me?
Diameter decrease.
Diameter is increasing.
Diameter is increasing.
Height is
Height
also
is
increasing.
Block
Which
two.
block? Which
Block
block? Block 2,
Block
very
two.
good. So this is our block 2. See, you should be able to quickly identify. When diameter increases, height increases, it's my block 2. So this is the position that you would use when you're using 2 blocks. In a V formation, you have to keep it. Please note down, you have to arrange. Presentation does matter. So you will arrange this in the V fashion. Why V fashion? Because it becomes easy for a child when I bring all my knobs into my center position. It is easy for a child to manipulate because it's closer to them. If I keep it very far, for the larger one, I have to reach too far. So it's easy for me in that way. Okay. Now the child will have to segregate. The teacher can mix it up and they can give. Now when I have my third one, take a look at the third variation. The third one, if you see here,
Diameter increases.
Diameter increase.
Height decreases.
height decreases and
Diameter
Diameter
increases.
increases.
Height decreases.
diameter increases and the height decreases.
decreases.
Okay.
Decreases.
So that's my block what?
3. 3.
Block 3.
Three.
Okay.
Three
So
block.
this becomes my position. When I have my fourth variant, I arrange it in a circular fashion. Okay. In order. The last one is my diameter is constant, but my
Constant.
height remains.
Height is
Increases.
Yes.
increasing.
Correct. Okay. So this becomes my presentation. To support with this, we also use something called as base cards. Okay. Now this is an optional. Not every school will have base cards, but there could be a possibility that in case if you have this material available, you can use this base cards. Now base cards will give you an additional support for a child where to position what. Okay, the child will be able to position on that. We also can have a spinning game. Okay, wherever you spin, you can actually put it. So these are all the extra games that you can actually give it to your child. Positioning of these ones, it's always through a pincer grip. Okay, so you need to use your 3 finger. It is also helping me to work on my motor skill. It is helping me on my pencil grip also. So each time you got to use only your index, middle and your forefinger when you remove the knobs and when you place it back also. So just use your 3 fingers, work on the diameter of the surface, work on the inner surface also. Then you keep it inside. Then you have to also check for the error of control, whether they are matching. So you have to always touch the surface. You should not have anything which is left out. Okay, so you can always work on this. So Shafali, for you, I got to send the stand. Okay, the stand is with me, but all the cylinders are with you.
Yes.
So there is a separate stand on which you can place all of them. Okay.
Okay.
So you should be able to do. When I finger do that, what happens? I should be able to be confident enough in putting it. Okay, so that becomes my exercise on my knob cylinders. There is also a variation to this one. We have something called as knobless cylinders. Now, did you understand what could be the purpose of doing this exercise? What's the purpose of doing this exercise? How many exercises, first of all, I have to do? How many exercises I have to do, first of all? I have to do 4 exercises. No, in knob cylinders. 4 exercises.
Yes.
Correct. So what is my first exercise? I have to do 4 exercises. The first
Diameter
one.
is diameter is
Thickness
increasing.
and height is height.
No. The first exercise is I will. No, wait. Let me explain. The first exercise. This is what was the presentation.
Okay.
Now there is a different way that I have to also give you an overview. If you've taken a diploma program, for you guys, when you're working on presentation, you have to follow your 4 exercises. In that 4 exercises, the first exercise is every block needs to be individually presented. That means you will present block 1, you will present block 2, block 3, block 4. The child should individually take each one out, visually see the differences. Okay, so that's your first exercise. Clear, all of you? That's your first exercise. Second exercise is exercise number 2. You give any 2 blocks. I can give block 1, block 2. It has to be a mix. I can give block 3, block 1. I can give block 4, block 2. Up to me. I have to give them a mix of these blocks. But now the child is so confident that the child is able to work individually with 2 blocks. Clear? Yes. Now coming down to my exercise 3, I will give them 3 blocks, maybe B1, B2, B3, or I can have B4, B1, B2, whatever could be my blocks. 3 blocks at the same time I give, child is independently able to do. But what is one thing that I have to work? The position of the blocks. If I'm working with 2 blocks, it has to be inverted V. If I'm working with 3, it has to be a triangle.
Triangle.
Okay, what's my last exercise? My exercise 4. The child should be able to work with all the 4 individual blocks. Correct? Now, coming down to what did I introduce? What was my language here? What was my language? What was the skill that I introduced? I taught children about thick and thin.
Thick, thin.
Yes, correct. I talk about thick and thin.
Paragraph.
What else?
G block.
Dimension.
Please
Tall
don't
and
make
short.
noise,
What
Bella.
about tall and short?
Diameter.
Dono hai.
Please don't make noise.
I can also have a tall cylinder, a short cylinder. Correct? So we can also have on that.
Tall
That
and
was also
short.
there. Yeah. Maybe big cylinder, small cylinder. I can also talk about large and small. I can work on these 3 language skills with the same material.
Diameter.
Okay. Now, purpose directly for me is visual discrimination. I'm able to grade from point. I'm able to grade from middle. I'm able to match the cylinders to the hole. Correct? So, indirectly, it helps me on holding my pencil rightly. I'm able to refine my voluntary movements. I'm also preparing my child for mathematics. This brings me to my knobbed cylinders. Okay, the name of the material is knobbed. Knobbed cylinders. Why do I call it knobbed? Because it has a knob on it.
Knobbed.
Okay, so it has 4 blocks. Now, another material which supports the same learning is my knobless. So it is a similar one, but it does not have a knob. So we work on knobless cylinders. Okay, so how is knobless cylinder different compared to this? Can somebody tell me?
Ma'am, in knob cylinders, actually, we give it to children who are just developing their pencil grip. So,
We can give, yeah.
yeah. But I think when we gradually introduce, they just get the hold on to the materials, you know. So
Yeah.
since there is no knob in this, the child is now prepared to hold the clasp the the cylinder with his palm, you know, or in the hand. So we want to see that transition. Now he can hold that.
Hmm. So you mean to say knobless is the first one that you would like to introduce, or knob do you want to introduce first?
First is knob one, ma'am.
Correct. Knobbed. Now you will see the child is able to now visually discriminate. Even now with knobless, he would be able to visually discriminate. The sizes, the thickness, he should be able to differentiate. Yes, correct. Okay, let's see that transformation also with knobless cylinders. It's going to be very much similar. But what you need to now tell me is, if I show you a knobless cylinder, you got to give me to what it exactly matches with. Okay, so please write down. So knobless cylinder will have 4 boxes of material. Okay, so it has 4 boxes of material. Each box will have 10 cylinders. Box will have 10 cylinders. Okay, they will have a red one. Red cylinder is 1 box. Yellow cylinder is 1 box. Then you have a green cylinder box and you have a blue cylinder box. Okay, so our red cylinder decreases in diameter. The diameter decreases, wherein the height is constant. So it matches with which of our block? You have to tell me that.
Block one.
Block 1? Definitely
Yes.
yes. Now coming down to my yellow decreases in diameter and height also it decreases. My block 2?
Block
Very
two.
good. My block 2. Coming down to my green, the diameter would decrease and the height would increase.
Block three.
Block 3? Yes. Now in the blue one, the diameter would decrease and, the diameter would remain constant. What about the height? Decreases.
Increase.
Decrease. Block 4?
Block 4.
Block 4, right? Now we'll be able to visually see that differences. Okay. Now to have this, I can either do this exercise sitting on the floor or I can actually invite the children to do on table and chair. So we can invite 2 children when they're doing, because it's a collective collaborative exercise also you can actually give it. So 2 children can actually do that. That can also help them to work on it. Okay. So these are some of my materials that I will have to be using. The first box is going to be a red one. You will see the lead also will be in red color. You will keep the top part below and then you are going to keep the above ones. Now, when you remove these cylinders, one after the other, you will be able to see these 10 cylinders. Now, what you need to do first thing is like you got to arrange each one of them in order. So this is definitely my block 1. The other alternative that I would start working is, I would be able to also create my tower. I should also be able to construct my tower. This is little difficult for a child because the child should be having good amount of focus, right? So you can also construct a tower this particular way. And that is one of the exercise that we can actually work with that also. So this is my red one. So similarly, you can also work with your green, your blue and your yellow by keeping one after the other. Keep back everything and then put them back into your shells. So that helps you to work on your first material, which talks about your noblesse cylinder. Likewise, I can also have my other ones, right? So we would also have our the noblesse cylinders. You will be able to present it in the similar way. That can also be helpful. Okay, so I'm going to stop over here for today. So if you have any questions and queries, you can just ask me for today. I'm just winding up 5 minutes a little early. So we still have time. Okay. Yes, I'll give you for questions now. You can ask me the questions. Anything that you would like to know a little bit more on knobbed or knobless? No? Okay. So let me brief you again by showing you this session also. You always have this comparison between these two materials, okay? So once I keep all my 4 sets of my wooden cylinders, they just look like this. And in contrast with each one of them and being in colors, we should also be able to have the corresponding 4 sets of knob cylinders. So the child will also get the visual comparisons between. They are used for the same skill development. Only difference is they are colorful. These are not colorful. The objectives are going to be very, very similar to what we actually have it. Now coming down to the arrangements we just saw for our red. Similarly for our yellow, wherein the height remained constant. For green, the height varied, but the diameter also varied. For blue also, the cylinders varied in height, right? So this was my arrangement. Once I've kept all the arrangements ready over here, the child starts to notice what is similar, what is different. And then they start mastering working with all the 4 sets. Maybe you can start with 1, then with 2, then with 3, and then with 4. Coming down to the ability of arranging, always start to teach them to grade from left to right. What is left to right? The way that we write. Let the child always start from the shortest to tallest or from tallest to shortest. You teach them about that skill. Okay, so that helps the child to actually work on helping them to understand about that scrolling. Then we're going to help them to work on the mathematical skill also. Now here is where you work on your pre-math skill. Now, can you tell me this is big or this is small? Can you show me where is big? And what is this? The child can actually answer. So each of the lessons will be presented in something called as a 3-period lesson. So 3-period lesson means it's not that first period, second period, and third period. First period is always where you introduce a particular concept. You say this is big, this is small. So it's called the naming period. Second period is, can you show me where is big? The child shows that. Third period is, can you give me or can you tell me what is this? The child will have to give out the answer that this is big. Okay, so that becomes your first lesson. Likewise, I can also talk about grading thin, thinner, thinnest. So we're teaching them grading small, smaller, smallest. Any conceptual, any pre-math you take, the child should be able to grade and give you 3 things when the teacher is able to ask all of that. These should be your language constructives, be it whatever box you actually choose. The teacher should be able to help the child to work on the pre-mathematical skill. Now coming down to hand-eye coordination, how do we work on helping the child to work on fine motor? Okay, so this is where you will ask the child to come to a particular place where the material is kept. You'll help the child to work on naming the material, and then you start helping them to carry it. When you show them how to carry it, that is how you're also working on the finger muscle memory, or I could say the finger grip. Always you have to keep the material on the lid. So that is again one of your knob, and you slowly bring out each of those materials. You can construct a tower, that is also possible, right? So this needs a lot of hand-eye coordination. You need a lot of precision in helping the child to actually work with that. Then putting it back is again a mastery, because you need to always start putting what? Always the largest to go back first, and then the smallest will go. So introducing the right way is also important for each one of us, and then putting it back. What if the child constructs something like this? Is it visually correct? Does it look correct? No, I can see that the tower is built incorrectly, right? So that is also wrong. So then you can introduce to construct the tower in a rightful way. This all could be a possibility of my error of control when I introduce these materials. Okay, so that helps me towards giving me this particular lesson on these exercises. Just to give you a quick glimpse of what we did today, we started with the 9 senses. So our visual sense, then we went into tactile, muscular, stereognostic, baric sense, thermic sense, olfactory, gustatory, thermic, right? Chromic sense. These were all the 9 senses. And we started with the first sense, that is our visual sense, wherein we got into different materials. Either it could be pink tower, brown stairs, red rods, then knob cylinders, knobless cylinders. So 5 materials is what we have done for today. And tomorrow we will do the other materials in the visual sense, and we'll continue with the other senses also. Okay, so thank you very much. So I'm winding up a little 5 minutes early today. So I'll see you all tomorrow. Yes, yes.
Ma'am, is the measurement same for both knob and knobless cylinders? The same 1 to 5 centimeters?
Yes,
The
yes.
same.
The measurements are same. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. The measurements are same. Only thing is like it doesn't have a knob. Okay. So see you guys. Thank you so much. A quick attendance on account of 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Thank you all. Have a great evening. See you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye, ma'am. Bye, ma'am. Bye, ma'am.